Welcome to the center of love on a beautiful snowy Sunday. And that's the truth. Because the truth is the theme of the day. And Ollie is going to enlighten us with some questions to stimulate our gray matter. Or maybe it's pink matter. Do we really know what color it is? Maybe it's a different color before we open the skull. Anyways, that's a whole other conversation. All about speaking our truth. You know, in today's day and age, there's so many kinds of truth, right? There's your truth. There's my truth. There's their truth. There's the real truth. There's the God's honest truth. Now, I'm trying to figure that one. God's honest truth. Not only does it have to be honest, it has to be God's. That must be some serious ass truth. You know, there's personal truth. Like for me, when I was growing up, I learned from the way my family was to not tell the truth. Tell people what they want to hear and then do whatever it is that you want to do. Not a good life strategy. Let me just tell you from experience, that doesn't go very far. And, you know, because what it does, not only does it make me dishonest with other people, I start to learn how to lie to myself. And that is sometimes the hardest truth to look at, is where I'm not willing or not even seeing the truth within me. Yeah, and to tell one's truth, one has to know what it is and have the courage to share it. Know thyself. That was quoted by someone. I'm sure Ollie knows who that was, because I don't always retain these tidbits of information. So Ollie, you can enlighten us. The other one that's come up, that's kind of truth that's come up in the last number of years, is the alternative truth. Like, how do we come up with that? Alternative truth is just another way to lie. I don't know. To be explored. To be explored. You know, two people can have opposing truth and both can be right depending on perspective and circumstance. We're creating our reality, so two people can create opposite realities. Just saying. So truth has some kind of malleability unless it's the truth. And who knows what that is? There's the truth of the fact that right here, we look at it, there's all these people in this room sitting in chairs, people online through pixels and data being transmitted. But the truth is, none of this is here. That this is all energy in a particular formation. So what do you do with that truth? In the show, in the Broadway show, Jesus Christ Superstar, Pilate sings to Jesus, "But what is truth? Is truth unchanging law? We both have truths, our mind the same as yours." Even they've been asking this for thousands of years. What the heck is truth? We've had wars over my truth is more true than your truth. In fact, your truth is alternative truth, right? So it's a big topic to explore. And what better place to explore it than here at the center of love? And the man that will be presenting to us, Mr. Oliver Belisle, wears many hats. He's a father. He's a husband. He's an avid reader. He's a bit of a jerk. He's an office worker, you know, a friend. He's a quester of knowledge. And incidentally, when I say that jerk, I say it very lovingly because all of us men have a little bit of jerk in us. It kind of goes with the territory. He's also the spiritual coordinator for the Center of Love. And what a great job he does at that. He has a real vision for this place and for all of us. And he's passionate. He's articulate. He's loves to be here every Sunday to share with you. And he's a really good speaker, and he's a dear friend of mine. So without further ado, Mr. Oliver Belisle.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for being here on this snowy day. And for those of you who couldn't make it, who decided to log in from the comforts of your home, really nice to see you. Great turnout online, and of course in person as always. So Dre, you did a really good job of setting up my topic, and not necessarily just setting it up, but setting up the problem with my topic, which is that it is far too massive to do any justice in 10 minutes. So like many of us who come here and speak, I am tasked with taking a small section, a small territory of this large country called the truth, and to try and make my ground there, and to try to establish some good questions so that we can have really engaging conversations and learn from each other afterwards. So I'm going to start off by telling you a quick story. When I moved here in 1991, I was in grade 2, and my parents signed me up to go to a school called L'École Victor Brodeur. Has anybody heard of this school? Yes, at the time it was the only fully French school in Victoria. And of course I was coming from Montreal, so I didn't speak English. So I went to this school from 1991 until 1999, from grade 2 until grade 10. Now let me tell you a little bit about École Brodeur. There were 300 students in this school. From grade 1 to grade 12, 300 students. My class in grade 2 was probably around 23 people. And in grade 10, it was around 23 people. And 90% of the people that I went to class with in grade 2 were the same people that I was in class with in grade 10. Double-edged sword. There are definitely advantages to this, but let me tell you, in grade 10, I was chafing. I was getting a little bit tired of the same old faces. I thought I was a big fish and I wanted to go and flex my fins in a bigger pond. And so me and 4 other friends who were part of the same class, we made a decision. In grade 11, we were going to switch schools and go to a place called Mount Douglas Senior Secondary. Mount Doug. Now, just to give you a little frame of reference, Mount Doug was for grade 11 and 12 only at the time, and there were around 1,100 students there. From 300 students, spanning grade 1 to grade 12, to 1,100 students in just grade 11 and 12. And guess what? Those 1,100 students all came from surrounding junior high schools, Arbutus and other surrounding schools. So everybody there already knew each other. They already had cliques. They were already well established. And here's this weird French guy who thinks he's so cool and who is convinced that he's going to be the big man on campus. That was my goal for going to Mount Doug. I had a friend who was going for football, right? I was going there to be the most popular guy in school. Yeah, Linda, your facial expression says it all. You can already see where this story is going. Now, it didn't immediately happen. I wasn't very popular. Nobody knew who I was. And so I thought, well, maybe the problem is I'm hanging out with these other weird French kids. And so what I did is I distanced myself from these other friends that I went to Mount Doug with, these people that I had been friends with since grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. I started to distance myself and pretended like I didn't know who they were. And then I also decided, well, I probably shouldn't be the same guy that I was before if I'm trying to be popular. So I began to change myself in different ways, the way that I dressed, the way that I spoke. My interests changed, my hobbies changed. And when I say changed, I mean they didn't actually change. I still liked all the old stuff, but I pretended like I didn't because I wanted to be cool. So can anybody guess what the outcome of this after 2 years was? What do you think I was the homecoming king or no? Surprisingly 0. But I did not attain my goals. I did not become the big man on campus. I was not my expectations, my dreams, my vision of what it was going to be like was very different than reality. And what ended up happening is I graduated never having attained popularity, but what I did acquire was a strong dislike for the person I had become. The kind of person who forsakes his best friends, the kind of person who hides what he likes and what he's into. And so, despite the lack of success in this endeavor, I did learn quite a bit about my truth and about the importance of living my truth. My truth back then was that I'm more of a nerd than a jock. I'm more of an artiste than a pickup artist. And I'm more a lover than a fighter. But back in grade 10 and 11 and 12, I didn't know this. And so these things take time to learn, don't they, my friends? Our truth isn't always evident. Oftentimes, our truth is buried underneath layers of cultural conditioning, distorted by cognitive biases and distortions, as we learned about 2 weeks ago from James, obscured by assumptions and expectations. Yes, indeed, the work of uncovering our truth, our values, our principles, what we truly believe deep in our heart, is a massive Herculean task in and of itself. Dre already talked about this. He says, how do we even know what our truth is? That's a whole nother subject of conversation that I cannot broach today, unfortunately, but something that I would love to talk to anyone, anytime, anywhere, because it's a daily practice. It's not something that you uncover once and it's over, because your truth is a living truth. It is evolving, it is growing. And so it's not something that we discover and we set aside. It's an ongoing work. But today, that's not what we will be talking about. Today, we're going to talk about living our truths, like I didn't do in grade 11 and 12. We're going to talk about how we can do this more effectively, because as beacons of light and love, as I talked to you both folks last 2 weeks ago, we're all beacons of light and love. And one of the ways that we can burn brighter is to truly embody and express our truths, not just in our words and in our thoughts, but in our actions. That's where the rubber meets the road, my friends. It's great to talk about our truths. It's great to share our truths. But when the pushing comes to shoving, we must also live our truths. And that's the truly important task here today. So a couple quick side notes. How do we know our truth? Well, there's many different ways to come to know it. For me, it's more a matter of uncovering it, because it's there. It's just obscured, like I said, by a bunch of stuff that doesn't belong to me. So the process of elimination, of identifying what actually is my truth and what is my dad's truth that he foisted onto me as a child. What's my truth and what's the truth that I picked up from school or from TV? I mean, if you grew up in my generation, TV gets right in there and you don't even know it. Like, for example, if I say, sleep country, Canada, right? Watching TV as a kid, things get in there. So identifying what is actually mine from what is not mine, right? That's been overall the process. The other note that I wanted to quickly make is something else that Dre touched on, which is the difference between the capital T truth and my truth, or your truth, or your truth. That's a whole nother subject as well, and one that we could spend many hours discussing. But today I will only say that, in my view, from what I can tell, the truth is the way things are actually right here, right now. And my truth is how I experience the way things are actually right here, right now, and how I interpret it. So each one of us is going to go through similar experiences, or maybe even the exact same experience, but we may walk away with radically different interpretations of that experience. As Dre said, neither one is more right than the other. Perhaps they're both equally valid, but they could also be very different. And so the way that I like to think about it is, your truth is a piece of the puzzle, and my truth is a piece of the puzzle. And the truth is the entire puzzle assembled. And so if I want to get closer to knowing the capital T truth, it's not enough for me to just know my truth. I have to know your truth, and your truth, and your truth. And I have to find ways to assemble these pieces together to get a bigger picture of the capital T truth, the way things actually are. So just a real quick footnote, that's kind of how I see the difference between my truth and the truth. And that's why at the Center of Love, we spend a lot of time talking about our truths, because that's really the only one that we can know with any great deal of confidence and certainty, right? Because the truth out there is uncertain, and it's a co-creative process that requires all of us coming together. But again, today the subject is more practical. It's about living your truth, and it's about living your truth and what will happen when you do this in different ways. And so I want to know from you, I want to know about your experiences, times in your life where you perhaps did what I did in grade 11 and 12, and you didn't live authentically, you didn't fulfill your truth, you didn't do what felt right in your heart, you betrayed that, and would love to hear about what you learned in those situations. I'd also love to hear about situations in your life where you did live your truth, especially when there might have been painful consequences in doing so. Speaking truth to power, standing your ground when you know and feel that what you're doing is the correct thing, even when others maybe disagree with you. Those are the types of stories that I would love for us to share after this. And also we can talk about the other things that I touched on, capital T truth, knowing your truth, all that fun stuff. But really in this day and age, in a world that is really trying to make us conform and adhere to certain principles and ideas, I think the most important thing here is that we live our truths, that we live authentically, because that's how we are going to be those beacons of light and love in the world. And it's also how we can help other people learn, discover, and live their own truths by being examples, right? Much better than telling someone what to do it yourself. And then other people will feel drawn. They might start asking questions. They might become interested. And then they might obtain the courage they need to live authentically, to express their truths. And so this is it. As beacons, we're examples, right? We're examples in the world. So there's just two really quick stories that I want to share with you about times in my life where I did actually live my truth. And I want to talk about those. And I want to also quickly talk about some of the negative side effects that may occur when you decide to truly get grounded into your truth, okay? So I'm going to start with a really trivial example. When Candace and I started to have kids, and we would talk about parenting philosophies and different things, one of the things that I was adamant about was that we never tell our children that Santa Claus is real. Sounds trivial, sounds silly, but I felt in my heart of hearts that telling my children that Santa Claus is real and telling them that he's keeping track of their deeds all year, and that if they're good, they're going to get presents, and giving credit to this mythological figure for the presents that my wife and I spent money on, I felt in my heart of hearts that that was wrong. And so
You just ruined it for me.
I'm sorry. Did anybody hear? Oh no, I should have checked to make sure nobody here still believes in Santa Claus. Oh, my apologies. That's another side of it, right? Coaching our children. Listen, don't tell kids at school that he's not real, like, because that's their business, right? This is my truth. I'm not going to push it on anyone else. But of course, friends and family and different people start asking questions. Why don't you tell your kids about Santa Claus? Well, why do we tell our kids to be honest? That honesty is the best policy. Well, because it's true. Okay, well, that's why I don't lie to my children about Santa Claus. Oh, well, it's not really a lie. It's just a fun story that we tell. It's the spirit of Christmas. Okay, are there other ways to tap into the spirit of Christmas other than by lying to my children? Well, I mean, you just don't get it. It's just not. Okay, I'm not asking you to get it. I'm explaining to you my point of view. You asked me why I do this. I'm telling you why. Why are you getting so defensive? Maybe some of you have noticed this. When you start to be authentic, when you start to be unapologetically authentic, because why would you apologize for living your truth? When you start to do this, people in your life may get defensive. They may feel judged. They may feel like you're not the kind of person they thought you were. And so that's my cautionary tale number one, is be careful. When you start to speak your truth and live your truth, some people may not like it. Okay. And now we're talking about something rather trivial, Santa Claus. I should say, and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy, because it's all the same. And we didn't tell our kids that any of them were real, but that's okay. We developed our own myths, our own rituals, our own symbols. We explained it to them differently, but we still were able to capture the essence of those holidays and those special occasions, like when they lose a baby tooth. You don't need to do it the way that society does it, right? You can do it your own way. That's what we're talking about, living our truths. The second example I will give you, I will not spend a great deal of time on it. I suspect some of us in this room will be able to relate. It happened in the early days of 2020, and later on with the development of a vaccine for a virus that apparently had a fatality rate of less than 1%. This was another occasion in my life where I was forced to make a decision. Do I take the path of so-called least resistance and follow what everyone else is doing? Or do I stand my ground? And my ground at the time simply was, I don't know. I don't feel safe about it. I want more information. I want more data. It wasn't it's poison. It wasn't it's a conspiracy. It was just, I would rather sit back and wait and see what happens. That was my truth at the moment. But as you can imagine, even that sort of gentle position could create a lot of conflict during the tumultuous days of the COVID pandemic. And there were many occasions where I felt like maybe I should just get it, because it'll make my life so much easier for work, for going out. These were conversations that I was having with myself, because once again, my truth is fluid. And if somebody presents me with evidence that is convincing to me, my truth will change. It's not rigid. It's not a fossil. Okay. But what I learned during the COVID pandemic, which I didn't know when I was having conversations about Santa Claus with friends and family, was that there's a way to have these conversations with people, even people who are heightened and who are convinced that they know the truth. There are ways to have conversations with them without creating more conflict that will actually open up the possibility for them to perhaps even change their minds. Okay. So yes, living your truth may cause conflict. Yes, it may lead to friendships dissolving, family members leaving. It's definitely possible, no matter how you handle it. But what I will say is that the more we get practiced with living and speaking and expressing our truth, the better we get at it, the more we can do it without ruffling as many feathers. And that's what I learned in the COVID pandemic. I had many conversations with people who were adamant about their position. And just by asking a few simple, well-placed questions, I was able to plant the seeds of doubt in their minds. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, the same person is singing a totally different tune. So instead of beating people over the head with my truth, as I used to do with the old Santa Claus example, where I was very, duh, you're wrong and I'm right, I found a different way of doing it. And so, yes, there are some challenges. There are some potential negative consequences to living your truth. But what I will tell you is, whenever I pick music for the gatherings, there's always a purpose behind the songs that I choose, okay? And last weekend I was folding laundry, one of my favorite things to do. And I had the music playing and the song came on, a song that I'd heard many times before, but I never actually listened to it. And of course, as I'm folding laundry, I'm thinking about today. I'm thinking next week I have to do this talk, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. And this song comes on and I start paying attention to the lyrics. And I was like, this actually kind of explains it really well. In the opening song, he says, we used to be robots on the treadmill. We used to keep spinning on a hamster wheel. We used to dream in black and white, blotting out the sunshine. We used to see darkness in the nighttime. But now I dream in color. And that's the difference between betraying your truth and living inauthentically and conforming to things just because, and living your truth. It's the difference between being on a treadmill and dreaming in color. It's the difference between spinning on a hamster wheel and dreaming in color. Life changes when you truly assert your truth and live it. It changes the complexion and the color and the quality of your life, so that even if a few relationships fall down by the wayside, it was a worthy price to pay to be dreaming in color. So I know that everybody here is working on this, doing it to the best of their abilities, day in and day out, not only learning their truths, but learning how to live their truths. And so, as I said before, what I would like us to meditate on during the next 10-minute meditation is situations in our lives where we have either done a fantastic job of this or where we could have done better. And any lessons, any learnings that we can pick up from these events in our lives. And then we'll grab coffee and we'll learn from each other, and we'll assemble the puzzle together and put the pieces so that we can get a bigger picture of the capital T truth. So thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to your insights and your wisdom in about 10 minutes time. Thank you.